Oh.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So, descriptions of the property, map. 2020 meeting of the Newmarket Conservation Commission. I'm Patrick Reynolds, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Sue, would you go ahead and do the roll call, please?
Patrick Reynolds.
Present?
Jonathan Kuiper.
Here.
Sarah Finch.
Present.
David Bell. David? Is he muted?
I don't
see
see a
him.
microphone. I see a mic. I don't see a microphone illuminated on him. So maybe we'll come back to him, see if he can sort it out.
Okay. Then Snyder? Here. Keyfaber?
Present.
Chris Blackstone?
Here.
You say Melissa was on or in the
I'm
wait?
here. Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Drew's-
Okay. And I just want to check. See, we have some guests here tonight. So Scott Boudreau is here. Scott, are you to present on anything here tonight?
Yes, I'm here for Mark West. He sent you a expedite.
Okay, you're here for Mark. Okay, got it. Thank you. And Malin Clyde is our guest speaker tonight, so she's online. I see someone signed in as Ben. And are you here as a guest, or did you have something to speak on tonight? Okay. And Stephen Breaker?
Yes, I'm here. Mark West is representing me in my project.
Okay, all right.
19 Moody Point.
Correct.
Okay. Well, why? Trying to see here. We have a guest speaker tonight that we plan to have go first. How long do you anticipate your presentation taking, Scott?
It's really up to you. We're just presenting a proposed addition that falls slightly within the wetland buffer along the Lamprey River. So probably
Right.
15 minutes at the most.
Okay, yeah, because I think we have actually seen this proposal previously, and then it had to be reworked and they brought it back again.
Okay. Oh, wait. Guest speaker can go first.
The guest speaker can go first?
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give the floor to Malin, but let me start by doing a short introduction. Okay. So Malin Clyde is here. Malin is the Natural Resources Extension Specialist at the University of New Hampshire with a focus on community volunteers. Her work focuses on engaging volunteers in natural resource stewardship and citizen science. She is interested in collaborative approaches to environmental stewardship and has worked with conservation partners and volunteers on invasive plant projects, such as the Garlic Mustard Challenge in New England, the New Hampshire Invasives Academy, and Nature Grouping, a website that connects volunteers to stewardship volunteer projects hosted by 250 plus organizations in New England. She received her undergraduate degree from Yale and a master's in forestry from the University of Washington, School of Environmental and Forest Sciences. So thank you, Malin, for being here tonight.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay, this is kind of a first for me. I've been on Zoom so much over the last 6 months, but not in a presentation to a conservation commission. So thanks for the opportunity to stretch. Chris asked me to come and share some, I think I'm going to show you some pictures because I think it might be more interesting than looking at my face. Well, I know it's going to be better than looking at my face. So I wanted to share my screen with you, if that's okay. Are people game for that? Otherwise, I could just talk. But okay, let me do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just sort of talk over the slides and just stop me, just call out, because I have my earphones on too if you have a question about anything. But I'm going to talk to you about Nature Group B, which is one of the big projects that I work on. Chris knows other things that I do, including coordinating the New Hampshire Invasives Academy, which she attended last year, and I think there's been one or two other people from Newmarket. But I also laughed that Ellen Snyder, I didn't know she was on your commission right now. She could probably give this presentation, so I would say that going forward, Ellen actually helped me start this project at Extension about 7 years ago and worked with me for a couple of years to get it started. So she pretty much knows everything. If you have questions about how it works or why it can help conservation commissions, you can ask afterwards, because she's an insider. So anyway, Ellen, it's fun to see you here on your commission. So we started Nature Group B, Ellen and I, about 7 or 8 years ago. We're based at the University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension. So right next door in Durham is the birthplace of this project. But it's not only a statewide initiative, it actually reaches across New England. And that's important just to know that that it has a pretty far reach, and we're looking for as many partners as possible. And I'm hoping that by talking to Commission about this project, that you all will be able to benefit from what Nature Group B does, and hopefully help maybe engage more volunteers in the work that you all are doing in Newmarket. Because I heard a little bit as we started that you have lots of conservation areas. I assume there are stewardship issues. Lots of people are getting outside right now and using trails, and perhaps having some impacts on our conservation lands. And Nature Group B is a way to recruit volunteers and train volunteers so that you have more engaged people in your community to help with that stewardship work. So we started really to make it easier for people to volunteer for nature. And what it is I'm going to advance the slide here. We started it in 2013, and you really can think of it as like a collaboration. There's about 250 organizations, including a whole bunch of conservation commissions, like the Newmarket Conservation Commission, who post their volunteer opportunities in a single place on the Nature Group B calendar. And then we go out and promote all of these volunteer opportunities to a big community of usually new people to volunteering for the environment. So we're really focused on getting young people involved, but also empty nesters, and really reaching beyond our current audience of people who, have been doing this for forever, to really expand the number of people who can help us take care of our properties. So, but the bottom line is that we want to make it easier to engage people as volunteers. So we do that through a website. Like a lot of communication these days, the online world makes it actually easier to do some things. And recruiting volunteers, I think, is one of them. We used to have to go to meetings and recruit at public. Still do that, but online is actually, people expect to be able to sign up for things online. So we have a lot of investment in this, basically this platform. And if you can kind of think of it as like Airbnb. Has anybody used Airbnb? Something like that. Yeah. So it's like a platform that's like a marketplace for organizations can post their volunteer opportunities here, and you can see. Can you guys see this pretty well? Or I don't know if I need to. I don't know if it helps if I make it bigger or not. I don't know what you guys can see, but there's one here in Alton for the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. There's another one here by this Forest Society. This one is a Lamprey River cleanup right here in your town, with the Nature Conservancy. Again, this is last year because there's so little on the calendar right now because of COVID. So I grabbed the screenshot from before. This is a trail maintenance work day up in Center Sandwich, New Hampshire. So they're all over the place, but it's a clearinghouse of opportunities. And so we're we're basically, when somebody goes to see what's going on, whoops, go back there, and say, I have some time this weekend, what's going on Saturday, they can sort it by the people or the location. They want to find opportunities 50 miles from their home. They could be, I really want to volunteer to help wildlife, and they can sort by wildlife. So there's a lot of different ways for people to look at these volunteer opportunities. And now, since we started in 2013, it's really crazy how many volunteer opportunities there are on this calendar. Like, it's normally this time of year, there's probably about 50 to 60 volunteer opportunities at any one time in the fall. Biggest season is the spring, then the fall, then summer is a little lower, and then winter, as you can imagine, is a little slower yet. The focus is really on volunteer action. It's not just walks in the woods or education. We find that actually there's a lot of that, but there's fewer, it's harder to find volunteer opportunities where people want to really get out and get their hands dirty. So that's our focus, to bring those together. But there's also opportunities to get involved in scientific research. I'll show some slides of that in a minute. Certainly a lot of invasive plant work days. I know that if you're anything like the properties in Durham, you've got some invasive plants on your properties. So some really creative ways on this calendar. You can look at how other groups are promoting their volunteer work days for invasive plants. And then finally, there's a pretty open marketplace for training opportunities for learning new skills that you might be able to use as a volunteer, or that you could send people from your community to build their skills to then volunteer for you here in Newmarket. So it's training, citizen science, and volunteer action. So I grabbed this slide just because this is normally an interactive map, but just to show you where, this is all the volunteer opportunities that have been posted on the calendar at this point in time. This is probably a screenshot from last year. But you can see, my point is that Newmarket is a really good place to be. There's a lot of action here in the Seacoast, probably because we got started here, but also just around Great Bay. There's so many conservation organizations that are sort of based here in the Seacoast, that means they're promoting a lot of volunteer events. And the feedback loop is, of course, that there's a lot of people participating in volunteerism for the environment here, just because there's so many groups and so many ways to engage. So I think you're in luck to be able to tap into that energy. We also recruit pretty heavily among college students at UNH, which maybe right now doesn't seem very appealing, but under a normal non-COVID situation, it's really great to get a group of hardy young students a couple hours, and we kind of make that easy. We actually even got a van this past year, so we'll be able to drive groups of students out to volunteer events. So we'd love to be able to, bring them out to Newmarket. It's not too far, and they get to know some conservation lands in this area, and you get the benefit of a group of students helping out. So just wanted to show you that. And then I just thought I'd show you some slides of the kinds of projects that people post on Nature Groupie, and it might get you thinking about some of the things that your lands might benefit from. But I guess to start, I just wanted to say some of the reasons that we've heard from conservation organizations like conservation commissions about why they might want to host volunteer work days and why they might want to engage with volunteers. And maybe you do this already. I bet you do. But one of the main reason is you say, well, we need help. Many hands make light work. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to get projects done. And that's certainly the most obvious reason. But it's really also a great entry point for people in what the Conservation Commission does. And, volunteering to sit on a board for, the foreseeable future every month is a big ask for people who might be new to sort of the environmental world. But hosting a volunteer work day hosted by the Conservation Commission might be a way to involve new people in your community in the work of a Conservation Commission. Or maybe people do that for a couple of years and then you finally ask them to join the commission. And, it's just a more welcoming, easy ask for people to be able to, spend a couple hours on a Saturday. So helping involve new people It also may be to engage different people who might not ever want to serve on a board. They might be, young people in town and they're too young to serve on the board, or they may be people who just would never come to a meeting because some people just don't like meetings. But this is a way for people with different interests and skills, and frankly, some people are just have like that outdoor energy and they want to do, and going through wetland permit applications is just not their thing. But this is a way to help engage them in the work of the commission, increase your capacity, and just like enlarge your circle of people. Certainly, I always say that it's just incredible to me what a learning experience it is to do something. So if you think about invasive plants, I used to give talks about invasive plants all the time, and I'm never quite sure if I taught people anything. I maybe raise their awareness that going out and pulling one invasive plant for 15 minutes, those people who do that usually do not forget that plant ever in their whole life, and they start seeing it everywhere. And so, I just think that hands-on work is sometimes the best way to learn about the environment and learn about nature. Certainly learn about your conservation areas, where they are, what they can do on them, where the trails go. It's a great sort of win-win, education and action at the same time. So a lot of people learn by doing. A lot of adults really learn well by doing. Actually, I think everybody just learns well by doing. So that's another sort of other benefit. And then the last example, and there's probably a lot more reasons to involve with volunteers, but the other one that I think is important is it just helps raise people's awareness of a problem. So they may be coming just because they want to help the Conservation Commission, and it sounds like fun to come to a garlic mustard pull in the spring because they want to get outside and it sounds fun, but they actually become aware of what this plant is, why it's a problem, and it just helps raise awareness. They might actually find the plant in some other places. You might have more eyes on the ground. So it can help raise awareness about issues that are important to you as a commission by getting more people aware of that topic in a really concrete way. Does anybody have any questions before I show you some more pictures? No? Okay. I'll just keep going.
Happy volunteers.
Happy volunteers. I love happy volunteers. Volunteers are actually always happy. Even if you catch them frowning, it's just because they were, working hard. It's really fun. So I just thought I'd show you some pictures. A lot of them are around the seacoast. Some of them are from a little further afield, but this is the Durham Conservation Commission. A couple of years ago, we had a volunteer work day to help build some bridges on one of our new conservation areas. We had hired this contractor to help with that, but he was amenable to actually hosting a work day. So we got a lot of people excited about that, and we got more volunteers engaged in trail work as a result of coming out to this. It was really a training and a work day, but we hauled a lot of lumber, and I think it made the project cheaper because we actually, did a bunch of the work with volunteers. So that was really fun. This is an example of a garlic mustard workday. Garlic mustard, do people know what that plant is? You have it here in Newmarket. It's an invasive plant that flowers in the spring. It's really easy to pull and a great family activity. This was a workday in Amherst, New Hampshire. Stood on Nature Groupie and got a bunch of families out. And it's it's spring and everybody wants to be outdoors. You can see the fiddlehead ferns are starting to grow back here. It's a great time to be outdoors. So that's kind of that's an easy one. That's a fun one. The Nature Conservancy hosts a bunch of garlic mustard work days in Newmarket out on Bay Road in the spring. This is trail work days, or some people really want to do trail work. When they think of outdoor volunteering, they think of trail work. Our trails really need help right now, and so trail maintenance activities. This is, they did summer work days, I think every 2 times a week up in Squam Lake last summer. And, they got maybe 2 or 3 people every time. So they had sort of a steady, their approach was to have a steady, small group of people that changed throughout the summer. It's amazing how popular trash cleanups are. And I always wonder why. I think it's because everybody knows they can pick up trash. There's no skill required. It's it's very tangible, and I think people feel great about cleaning up, although you're sort of like cleaning up after other people, but still, you make a real tangible difference, and I can tell you they're super popular. This is one that is hosted by Wildlife Refuge. They host them monthly, usually in the summer, not this summer, but normally. And they often have to close through Nature Groupie, you can put a maximum number through our system, and they usually have to close it at 100 people, and they often get 100 people. So it's pretty amazing. Of course, it means they have a lot of garbage to be picked up because they're having to hold this monthly, but that's just the tidal systems. But if you have issues like that here in Newmarket, that's definitely something to consider. Really popular. This is one training people in kayaks to look for aquatic invasives. This is in freshwater, but that's a project up in the Lakes region. That's kind of cool. So, volunteer on your boat. That's fun. There's also a bunch of training opportunities that are posted through Nature Groupie, some of which are hosted by Cooperative Extension. So we post our own things through Nature Groupie. We have a training on how to lead a nature walk, and this would be something that, if you all wanted to start leading walks as a commission, this would be something that your volunteers might want to go to in order to sort of learn some tips and tricks about how to lead a good nature walk. And I can tell you that, Barrington Conservation Commission has just been leading nature walks monthly for years after several of their participants came, and they just have a crew of people who are totally into it, and they lead all kinds of walks, a lot of them just guided trail explorations, but this has been something to look out for. We usually hold that training at least once a year. That trail maintenance thing that I described earlier about building the bridge, you can also look for training opportunities or ask Extension if you want to host one of just basic trail maintenance to get a crew of people from Newmarket who might be interested in that as a group of people to get this training and learn how to maintain blazes on trails, or learn how to clean out drainages, or learn how to survey trails for maintenance issues. We have a guide and a curriculum for that training, and that's always really popular and a great way to sort of get a group of people who are into trails together to learn about that. This is the Invasives Academy that I mentioned before. Chris, this should look, I don't know if you're in that picture. I don't think you are. But this is something we host in the fall. We would be hosting it this month, but we're actually going to make it an online training this year in the spring. But the Invasives Academy, there's Ellen right there. I didn't even plan that, Ellen. But this is an opportunity to learn really in depth about invasive plant management, how to deal with invasive plants. So that's something that if others on your commission are interested in, to look out for that in the spring to sort of get trained on approaches to invasive plant management. But again, we promote that through Nature Groupie. And then citizen science is kind of this cool element that's just been increasing like crazy in the last 10 years as people have these amazing computers in their pockets in the way of cell phones and iPads. There's a way to share data and observations about nature with the whole world through programs like iNaturalist, and there's a million of them. And we promote a lot of those, particularly the ones that are place-based here in New Hampshire, promote those through Nature Groupie as well. Things like the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department collects observations of turkeys, summer brood surveys, but also wintering turkeys and the size of the flock, and you can report all that kind of stuff. So that's a really fun thing for people to do. Again, just things that you can promote as a commission. If you're promoting things in your regular communications with the community, you can sort of add in some of these things that are already developed. They're educational. You can hear about them through Nature Groupie and then pass them along to others to just have another way for people to engage with your lands. This has been a fun one the last couple of years to get people involved in monitoring monarch butterflies and caterpillars. So that's another, again, like I'm sure you have great habitat for that on your lands here in Newmarket. So that's another fun way to engage your community. And it's already organized. You don't don't have to organize anything yourself. You're just sort of passing along that opportunity through through what you've heard through nature grouping. Oh, another I think great one. Does anybody heard about the Big Tree program? There's like this group of, it's actually almost all run by volunteers, but it's through extension to measure all the biggest trees. And there's county big trees, county champions in all the species. And there's state champions and there's national champions. And so that's actually kind of a neat program that we promote trainings as well as, they might be holding webinars or things about the Big Tree program. But that, I bet you have a champion of something here in Newmarket.
I think it's
Just a little
Colorado
bit of-
spruce.
Oh yeah. Oh great.
Yeah, right there on
Woo!
Main Street. I think that's the one that's
Oh,
in
really?
the book anyway. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. All right, I'll take it. Those are cool trees. So just a little, I just have a couple slides about, it's a website, but it's also this community. Nature Groupie is really, we're trying to build this community. And so anybody can join. It doesn't cost money. And we really encourage, this is a family that came to one of those Great Bay cleanups a couple of years ago. And their story was so cool. They have a goal of volunteering 100 hours a year as a family. And they're just looking for any ways to contribute back, just to sort of share their values with their children, and they do it together. It was so cool. So that's the kind of thing where we're tapping into people who, might not know anything about the Newmarket Conservation Commission. They may not even live in Newmarket, but they see a volunteer opportunity. They've got time that Saturday. It looks fun. It's nice weather. They're going to sign up and come lend a hand in your community, even though they don't even live here. So that's kind of, they live in Dover actually, but we think that we can only tap into people in our own communities, but it's actually kind of amazing. We did a little analysis 2 years ago about people who are volunteering through Nature Groupie, and we compared the zip code of the volunteer event and the zip code of the people volunteering, and we found that over 50%, it was actually 54% of the people were volunteering outside the county. So not outside their hometown, but outside their home county. So that's more than half of the people volunteering are traveling pretty far. And so I think that's a counterintuitive thing, that you could actually be gaining engagement and muscle power and energy from people beyond Newmarket. So that's really the advantage of conservation commissions using Nature Groupie to recruit people, because you really can reach beyond your own borders. Just to give, this is my only graph, I promise, just to give a sense of scale, when Ellen and I were starting Nature Groupie, it was back here in 2013 and 14, and we had about 180 things on the calendar for the year, and we had about 250 people signing up to volunteer. So it was like an average of just a little over one person per event. But you can see, the ratio has really changed. We still have, there's about 250 events on the calendar every year. So there's not something every day, but there's almost something every day. But then, the number of people participating in those events is just going up and up. And we have a pretty stable core of about, now it's actually even higher. We have about 5,500 people who subscribe to our weekly bulletin. And so they're looking for volunteer opportunities, and that's of people who are just engaged and want to volunteer. So that's the kind of scale of what we're doing. We're trying to grow that community. We'd love to have 20,000 people subscribing to Nature Groupie, so that every event that's posted on the calendar is full. So when you post something, it's standing room only to come to Newmarket and pull garlic mustard or whatever. So that's our goal. I think that may be my last slide, although I don't think, oh no, it is. So how do people get engaged? Again, we have this weekly volunteer newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday. You can sign up easily on Nature Groupie. If you go to the website, it says Get Experiences and a little envelope on the top. So if somebody on your commission, Chris may already get it. I know Ellen gets it, but they can sort of keep on the lookout for creative ideas or training opportunities for your commission or for your community to share with others. But anyone can sign up. And then we're on a variety of different social media channels that we're promoting your events through social media. So if you don't have a social media account, that's another good, this is sort of an easy way to get tapped into the social media world by posting your event on Nature Groupie. We start promoting it on social media. And then we also have, so we have stickers that if we go to certain events and pass out stickers and get people excited. Normally we go to a lot of events. So if you have an event in town in the future when we're doing more in-person programming, if you have a town event, festival, something like that, you can get Nature Groupie, you know, if it makes sense for us and we have time, we can come and set up a Nature Groupie booth and start recruiting volunteers, sort of separate from the Conservation Commission, but we have a whole system for it. We can start engaging those people, and then you might even be able to build more people in from Newmarket who are excited about Nature Groupie and would come to things in Newmarket that you guys might post on the calendar. And I think that's my last slide. This is what it looks like to volunteer outdoors, even if you're cleaning up garbage. This is how happy people are. This was actually with the Portsmouth Conservation Commission 3 years ago maybe. We did this cleanup of this sort of neglected and ignored piece of conservation land next to the Portsmouth Hospital. And it was nasty, but it was great, so satisfying. They hauled all that stuff away and it felt great. And again, you know, you can see it's like all different ages and people from all over, people who worked at the hospital. These are not conservation commissioners, you know, one conservation commissioner there, but the rest is all like community members. So it's just kind of cool to see what can happen when you basically open your doors to action like that. So I will stop sharing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I know you have a long agenda. So.
This is great. I appreciate it. It's nice to know about this because we do have Facebook and Instagram presence. And there has, with the letdown of the lamprey, there's been some recent chatter on some of the town Facebook sites about what's being found in the mud. So that could be a good entree into the program.
Yeah, and I do think like you can do a trash cleanup that's pretty easily socially distanced. So if needed, if that's, and again, people like to do it. You could even ask for people to do it separately, although I do think people are starving for ways to engage with each other. So if you feel you can do it safely. We also, I'll just throw out there, just mention that it's on Nature Groupie, but it's also, if you just search through Cooperative Extension, we have a free online training module for COVID safety and out, which, you know, you may assume everybody knows what to do, but not everybody does, and sometimes we feel more comfortable if we've, you know, heard it again. So that's something that if you do decide to host a work day during this epidemic, you can send a link to that training, and you can either make everybody do it, because it downloads a certificate that you can require people do it if you feel like that's necessary, or you can just suggest that people do it if they feel they need some, you know, just reassurance about best practices in the outdoors, and what their risk might be. So that's available on the Extension website. It's posted through Nature Groupie. You can just Google it. It's pretty easy to find. So I'll just throw that out there if you do decide to do something.
At our meeting last month, we heard from the Rockingham County Forester. He had done a survey and presented lots of really interesting historical information about a property here in town. And several times during his presentation, he said the invasives that he had found there. And he gave a projection of, well, there was just a couple of plants, but there could be more. And that's kind of what triggered me to think we really need to formulate our thinking about how to have a volunteer effort rather than just have a few people say, I found one, I plucked it, I'm going to carry it home and throw it away, or whatever they're going to do, you know, to learn the real protocols or to arrange a formal way to go about that you know, tackle games. Kind of what made me also think about Nature Groupie and the help we could get from people that are really hell-bent on tackling the invasives.
Yeah, and even people who just want to get outdoors and make a difference, they don't often, you know, we get college students to go pull invasives who don't even know what it is they're doing. They don't even care. They're just like happy to get outdoors and help planet Earth, you know? So, it's great to, and again, it's fun. When people think I'm volunteering for the environment, that's the kind of work they think they'll be doing. You know, so people like it. So it needs to be well organized and well thought out and stuff. But luckily you have some people on your commission, like Ellen, who can advise you on that. But we also can provide advice. There's actually lots of stuff on the Nature Groupie website about hosting a volunteer work day and tips on how to do it, how to organize things so that people have a good time.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts. What Mullen just said, it is you do want to be organized, and Nature Groupie really helps you do that. Makes you think through, when and where and what time and how many people. And the really nice thing is it's automated. So you have people sign up, and then you get a list of people that are coming. So you don't have to go through your email and look and find out who replied to this or who replied to that. This is an automated system so it's really a nice way to hold a work day with volunteers, and then the volunteers feel like you're really organized, because it's just people like to come and know that why are we here? I mean, they want to have fun and do something, but it's also really important to be organized, and Nature Groupie really helps you do that. It's really great.
I realized that I didn't have a slide in here about our tool library.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I had it on here before, and whatever. I didn't include that, but just so those who don't know, that Nature Groupie also has a tool library that's pretty close to you all. It's at the it's a partnership with the Southeast Land Trust's Burley Farms property, so out right off on River Road off 125. So it's pretty easy to get to from where you are. And we have all these stewardship tools, full set of everything you might need to host a volunteer work day, including gloves for people that don't have them, but also weed wrenches to pull buckthorn, or all kinds of specialized tools for volunteer work days, saws, not chainsaws, hand tools, hard hats, safety glasses, reflective vests for if you're doing work alongside of the road. It's sometimes that's a barrier to having a big group. You're like, oh, we don't have the stuff. Have like sandwich boards that say workday here, so you can really, again, we want to help groups like yours to be welcoming, but also be prepared and professional, and people feel really good when it seems like well organized, like Ellen was saying. So we can help you do that. All right, well, I'm gonna keep a lookout and hope to see something posted from Newmarket sometime soon. And hopefully Chris and Ellen both know how to get in touch with me if you guys have questions.
Well, thank you so much, Malin, for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Have a good rest of your meeting. Thanks, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care, bye.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Okay, so Scott, Boudreaux, are you ready to present?
Sure. I do want to say that I was glad I saw that guest speaker. That was very beneficial to me. I'm a scoutmaster right here in town, to a group of very motivated girls that are always looking for work like that. And they wanted me to actually ask you tonight if you had any jobs for them to work on. So that's pretty funny.
Well, hopefully we'll have something posted on Nature Groupie soon. And if not, they should feel free to look for any of the other projects. Sounds like they've got a lot of things out there to do. So
What age, Scott? What age is the group?
They vary between 11 and 16 right now. But they're always looking for service hours, and our next one was going to be like environmentally based, so
great.
something like that. So anyway, moving on to the project here, I can share my screen, right?
Yep, you should see a share screen button there at the bottom. Yep.
Okay. So
Great.
You've seen this before. This is the first time I've been to the Conservation Commission for this project myself. Mark couldn't make it. He asked me to present tonight. What we're looking at here is a property on Moody Point Drive, 19 Moody Point Drive, and one of the owners is here tonight, Stephen Breeker. What he's proposing to do is add an addition to his existing house. So I'm zoomed into this area. There's a lot of color going on this particular plan. just showing the different breakouts. But you can basically see the proposed addition here. I'm showing the roof overhang, and this is for the calculations for the shoreland application. But since it falls within the 100-foot buffer of the wetland, that's what this line is right here. 100 feet from the highest observable tide line of the Lamprey River. Section that falls in with there that they're going to be adding on, so that's why we're here for the expedited. So I don't know if you have any questions right off the bat. He's provided you with the application. I don't know if you had a chance to review that at all.
I did share it with everybody. He actually sent it out to everybody on the commission at my request, just because that's easier right now. So I want to make sure if anyone has any questions, if you got a chance to review that application, if you had any questions right now.
Yeah, Patrick, you said this was before the commission before. What do you know what the change is from that time period?
I believe that has to do with a change in the location of the septic tank. Was that correct? Isn't that correct?
Septic tank is over here. I don't think that's been altered or anything, unless this was years before, but that's the current location of the tank.
I think
Okay.
we're using the application of my neighbor. Mr.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I may be.
yeah, this is the first application to the committee.
Okay.
So because area, that's why we're here in front of the board tonight to try to get that expedited application in for just this small area that's within the 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
There is an existing deck right here already, and the steps. That deck is going to be removed to make way for the new one. So we're actually removing this portion that's closest to the wetland, moving it back slightly, and the remaining area will be 37 square feet here, and an additional 14 square feet of additional impact right here. And we aren't building any closer to the water than that existing house is already.
Yeah, I did see that in the application. Does anyone want to see any other part, any questions, any part of the application that you want to see?
Pretty small
Okay.
area in the buffer.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Looks
It's actually further back than the existing house too, keep in mind. So this is the part, the existing house is actually closer to the buffer than what this addition would be.
Yeah, and if you missed the plan, the river is down here, and it drops right down pretty quickly.
Okay, so what's before us then would be a motion to basically provide our approval to their expedited permit.
so moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, you need a second, I think.
Oh, sorry, need a second.
I'll second. Alyssa.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, sounds like that was unanimous. Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and proceed. Next item, we've gotten through guest speaker and public comments. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the approval for the minutes from August 13th, 2020. Does anyone have any questions or amendments or edits on those minutes? Okay, so looking for a motion to approve those minutes then?
Motion to approve as written.
Thank you. Second?
There's second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 John?
Aye.
Okay. So,
Okay, so our next item on the agenda would be the treasurer's report. Did Ellen, were you able to get any financials this time around?
I realized I didn't have it, so Carol sent me some stuff today, so I just have a couple numbers. The
Okay.
conservation fund balance is $246,951.59. So I think that's a little bit of an uptick last time. Shopmeyer Memorial Park balance as of July 31st is $6,433.45.
repeat please, 640,
$6,433.45.
thank you.
And no new current use deposits since the last time we met. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Ellen. I want to take this opportunity to welcome John Kuiper as our new town council representative. Welcome, John. Nice to have you on board. We're excited to be working with you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Now, typically, just the town council rep would report out on anything that they thought might have a bearing on the Conservation Commission, but if you didn't have anything that you had to share that's related, that's okay. But typically, that's what they would do.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Sarah, what's going on with the planning board? Anything to report there?
I haven't had a meeting since our last Conservation Commission meeting. Our monthly meeting for September was pushed back, so we're having it on the 15th, this coming Tuesday.
Okay. All right. So under chairman's report, I've got a couple items, and then I actually want to turn it over to Chris and Melissa, who have an update as well. The first thing I wanted to share was I did get notification from the Department of Environmental Services. It's more of a copying that we got on this, and that was that they were putting a property owner on notice on River Street that they had received complaint of possible violations on their property. And so under RSA 483-B, a shoreline permit is required prior to conducting certain construction, excavation, and filling activities within protected shoreline. So they send us notice that they're investigating that situation, and I'm sure they'll give us an update if in fact they find. Right now it's just they're letting us know that they've got something that they're working on there, and the party has 20 days to respond. And again, I don't have anything on record for any proposed work to be done at this parcel of land on River Street, so I have nothing to share that we received notification on, so I really don't know much more than that. And I guess DES will investigate and determine if they need to take further action. Sorry?
The last time we got a notification about DES investigating something, they included pictures of it. Were there any photos involved in that?
No, no photos.
And so again, it's RSA 483-B.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So, Chris and Melissa, I believe, wanted to share some information about the photo contest.
Exhibit.
Exhibit. Sorry, exhibit.
That's okay. It's things are still in motion. We're still, accepting photos via social media or email at this point. And Chris, I just wanted to apologize for the Zoom issues I was having yesterday. We were set to meet with two folks from the town council who have started the Newmarket Arts and Tourism Committee, which was created as a way to really highlight the arts in town and drive foot traffic to downtown businesses. They've recently started things in motion for targeting local businesses for art to exhibit in different restaurants and establishments downtown. So we reached out to see if we could all get on the same page and combine our efforts. I did speak with Helen Sanders yesterday, even though we had video trouble. But we talked about, combining efforts to target local businesses for both the commission's photo exhibit and the Arts and Tourism Committee's efforts to display different kinds of artwork. One of the things that we discussed was keeping the same timeline that the Conservation Commission had last year, which was taking in artwork, photographs of our properties to display in October to November, just like we had last year, and then sort of dovetailing into a schedule with the Arts and Tourism Committee displaying after that throughout, through the winter and into the next year. So we are planning to regroup and make sure that we're all on the same page and have a course of action, but that's where things stand right now.
Okay. So are there any action items that we need to do as a group on this, or?
No real action items, I don't think.
Okay.
And Chris, you can think of anything?
Well, in the back of our head last year, we had toyed with, was there going to be anything else photos, and the people that entered last year as well as the people entering this year know that there could be something else we're doing beside beside displaying them. So we're still kind of toying with the idea of a calendar, and it could be a limited edition print setup. It could be a print on demand setup. We haven't researched that much yet because with the new phase of the arts and culture, what's it called? I say art and culture, but
Tourism, arts and tourism.
Arts and tourism. With that committee forming, we wanted to see kind of what were some of their plans as well, so that it wasn't an isolated thing. And so that could happen, it might not happen, but it was still something we wanted to think about if this commission was interested in pursuing having a tangible product after the exhibit or after these photos are on display in different windows and different business establishments. Some of the businesses could be slightly out of town. I know the sports and fitness people are interested in participating right there across from the golf course. So a couple of the spaces are outside of town, but they're part of the Newmarket Business Association, or they're part of this commission, the Arts and Tourism Council somehow.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, let's go on to all the different items we've got at 9. Old and new business. So the first one I have, which we talked a little bit about last month because we had just received it, but I wanted to make sure we addressed it, is we have the application to use the Shanda Park waterfront area to store what's called the pocket of the fishing weir, which has been stored there in the past. This is not something new. It's just we're making sure that there's a permit in place. So this is the fish weir that's operated by Jerry Collins, and the pocket, which is sort of, for lack of a better description, is still looking like a steel cage, sort of part of the fish weir, gets pulled ashore and is stored sort of just a little bit upstream from where the town dock is. It's a part of the river that is flat, sort of going into the water there. So they just basically tow it over and pull it up on shore. This is an area that we have had some preliminary talks with DES about possibly transitioning to a living waterfront, but right now there's kind of, I haven't heard back from them. I don't know if it's just because they're very busy with what they're working on currently as far as living waterfront projects, but there's really nothing pending on that right now, so I don't see a conflict in them storing this part of the fishing weir there this winter. I did also just reach out to Fish and Game to see if they had any comment or information, and what they did share with me is that the current status of the herring run, which consists of both alewife and blueback herring in the Lamprey River, is considered healthy under their criteria. They had a large return this year. They had over 50,000 herring that pass through at the top there. That's where they count them. There's the little tank basically where the fish end up, and they're scooped out of there and put into the river. That's fish. And they actually had enough fish that they moved 5,000 of those fish to other bodies of water across the state to help increase the runs in those areas. And I think they put them into lakes actually to see if they can help in those areas. So the guy I talked to, Mike Dion, who's the biologist associated with the anadromous fish work in New Hampshire, was very positive that the Lamprey River run, he feels like, is in a good place, so that there's room for the fish weir to take fish, and it's not a bad thing. So I just think that's important to add their comment. They had no objection basically to the fish weir being there. They did clarify that one day a week, Wednesdays, that the fish weir is actually open and no fish are caught on that day. So I guess basically my point would be that I would move to approve Mr. Collins's request to store the fish weir apparatus on the Shanda Park property.
This was for very specific dates. It was for the
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. It's October 2020 to June 2021.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Melissa.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor? Patrick, I'll say aye.
Any against? Abstentions? Okay.
Okay. All right. Going on. have an update on Clark Farm. The Clark Farm, just to remind folks what that is a plan to create an easement on a large portion of Clark Farm, which is located in the western part of Newmarket, right on the Epping line. And this would create an easement across most of the existing farmland and forest land that the Clark family owns. One of the concerns was that there is a small section of the proposed easement that is in Epping. So Southeast Land Trust has been working with Epping Conservation Commission, and it does appear that they are favorable to making a contribution from their funds to towards that part of the farm that is within Epping that would be under this conservation easement. So what hopefully will happen is next month they will vote on that and approve that, and if that happens, then it would reduce the overall amount of funds that we would be asked to contribute to that. So right now we were in the neighborhood of around $90,000 that they were looking for us to contribute towards that easement, so that would reduce that, and it would kind of, I think, resolve some of the concerns that the town council had legitimately about putting funds towards land that wasn't in Newmarket. So that would kind of resolve that issue. So that's pretty good news, and hopefully we'll hear an update next month from SELT that passed through the Epping Conservation Commission. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. Next, we have the Shopmeyer Park Management Plan. Ellen has completed this plan, and was everybody copied on your draft of the plan? Is that a yes? Can't tell.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Ellen, I was wondering if you would, the part that I was really hoping you could maybe talk a little bit about is just the part where you sort of went into what the roles of the different groups within town would be in your proposed management plan.
Blah, 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 blah. So I had sent out 2 drafts. Last week I sent a draft, and it was sort of a question whether what role the Conservation Commission would play and what role the Department of Public Works would play. And I got feedback from Steve Fournier, the town administrator, and Rick Molaski, PW director, and some other folks in the committee that, they're willing to really be in charge of the park. The town is, in terms of basically most of the maintenance. So that seems like a really good idea to me. So I basically changed up the responsible parties in that. Really the main part of the plan is that last bit about the management. So there's a couple. So the question is, what role, if any, does the Conservation Commission want? And the way I left it in the draft, this current draft, is that we could help recruit volunteers, because there are some things that could use, volunteer work, trails and tending the gardens and so forth. And I think what Rick Molaski said is that he didn't want lots of volunteers out there doing stuff without some oversight. So I think that their department is willing to sort of take on everything, but then we can help if he needs volunteers to do a trail or to weed garden. We can help. Maybe the garden folks in town can help. So it's a pretty somewhat minimal role for the Conservation Commission, which which I think is great. We have plenty of other lands to care for. And then there is if that's the case, there is about, right now, $6,000 in the Shopmire fund that Richie Shelton has been, expending from to do a lot of the projects. And I think there might be a couple more, although most are in-kind donations, so there presumably will be about $5,000 to $6,000 left. I originally thought that would go to the conservation fund, but since DPW is the entity that will likely now take over, it seems to make sense that that money should go into their pot so they can use it for maintenance. So that would be my recommendation. That sounds good.
What's happening to the cost for the removal, the annual removal of that?
Right, so, right now, apparently it's costing about $1,000 a year, 500, and, that's really not very sustainable, because that's hiring out the contractor basically to do it, and my understanding is that DPW would take over that.
Yeah.
I think basically you have to just go in the water and you pull it out. So, yeah. So I think this is seems to me like a really good, moving forward on this.
I agree. I feel like this is exactly what we wanted. We really didn't. I think we had talked about this previously, and I think if DPW is willing to take it on, we're happy to be there to, work on projects that, or help with coordinating some projects if there's a specific thing, but that I think the park will manage and run much better with them doing the day-to-day stuff and being in charge of everything and having it on a schedule and knowing that they are going to do it. And I know that, the rec department has been coordinating all the kayak stuff out there. And so, I think that makes the most sense. And I really appreciate, Ellen, you doing this plan. So it's sort of got everything down on paper for everybody. I also would agree with transferring the remaining funds to DPW for their administration of this park. I have no concerns about that either. I just think that they're in the best position. It's a very traditional park property for the most part, and so I think they'll do a good job, and they've already shown that in the things out there. So I think we should probably go ahead and make a motion that we would support the delineation of responsibilities at the park as Ellen has written in the plan, and it has our support. And I think we should probably do a separate motion to move the funds from our account under the Shopmire Park account to DPW. Let me know if anyone has any thoughts on that or anything.
Motion,
I have go ahead, Sue.
does your motion also include accepting the management plan, because that was part of?
Yes, accepting the management plan, yes.
So is to accept the management plan as written, supporting the delineation of work.
Right, responsibilities for the park.
Responsibilities.
I might there's a couple minor edits, so we might wanna just say the final version of the plan will be accepted.
Final.
That's okay. There's always a few more tweaks.
No.
My question was about the finance part, so I'll wait until after this motion passes before you do the next one for my question.
Okay.
So that's kind of my, because these donations were made specifically for the park.
That was my question.
I think we need to be very careful about language related to that.
Would the DPW have a line item that says Shopmire Fund or Shopmire Grants or whatever? I would prefer seeing that than to have it be 6K into their general fund, because then it would be really hard to ever say, where did the money go for Shopmire? I think it might be easier if they had that 6K that said, this is what it's for, and it was debited against from time to time. People like Drew said, it was you, Drew, right? That you don't just donate money and then have it be absorbed by another much bigger fund without thinking like, I wanted money to go to Shopmire. especially because this is a memorial, so people might have donated precisely for the site, the purpose of the kayaking and the memorial aspect.
I think that's a very good point. So what if we sort of put that back to the Shopmire Park Committee to ask them, you know, what they would like to do, because DPW would be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the park, which is what I think that money is intended for, is my understanding. And whether they want it as a separate line item that, like you're suggesting, just as it appears in our financial records as a separate line item, it should probably, appear that way if DPW has it, or does it have to stay over here in the conservation area and they then have to come to us for requests for dispersals of that fund? I don't know, but I'm willing to defer to the people that were responsible for fundraising that money to some extent. So we could put that motion aside until we can get that part figured out. And that might have to go through the town manager to get their input on that. So I'll rescind that motion for now, and we'll just stay with the one motion to approve the management plan for tonight.
That's comfortable, thank you.
And a second on that? Chris? And everybody put a hand up? Is everybody putting a hand up? Okay. All right. Put a hand up.
Thank you, Alan, again for moving that along. I really appreciate you taking the lead on that, because that was kind of our one detail that was hanging out there for a long time, and you stepping in and doing that really helped us to get that sort of finalized. So I appreciate that.
Do you want me to check with Richie and Steve, because it needs to go in the plan where that money's going to go, or it should be, so I can check with them if you want? And
Yeah.
Bring it, when we obviously have to bring it back at our next meeting to approve.
Yeah, I think I would definitely feel more comfortable with their input as far as what should happen with that.
Yeah, okay, we can do that.
Okay. So I have Heron Point Management Plan on here, but really it's more about, we had a couple issues with Heron Point that we were looking at. We got the update from the state forester, or the county forester, and some of the issues that we're still looking at, Ellen, I believe, is still working on that trail map to determine where the trails will lie when the updated map that we'll have. But the other issue we have is we have the invasive plants out there. And Sam couldn't be here tonight, but Sam wanted to propose that we have a volunteer day out there to address the invasive plants, to try and get some of them removed. And so that was really what I wanted to emphasize for Heron Point, was if we could figure out a date that would work for people. We could also try putting it on Nature Groupie once we had it organized. I think the main things that we would need would be some people from our group, some people from the Conservation Commission who would be comfortable, one, telling people what are the invasive plants and where are the invasive plants, so that when they're removed and probably piled up in the parking lot or something like that, we'll have a sort of organized way of attacking this project. So Sam was proposing a date not too distant future think his idea was as early as the 23rd.
Oh,
A little soon.
That's pretty soon, though.
that's a little too soon.
Couple
Yeah.
questions about.
Sure.
So if you watch the video, when we didn't talk in great detail with Mullen about the specifics of this with COVID, but we do have to stay distance, and everybody has to have their own tools and have their own. So in addition to wanting to have this, which I think is great, we do have to sort of think through how we would hold it and make sure everybody is socially distanced, because you still have to follow that protocol. At least if I'm going to, that's what I would do if I were being involved in the workday. So the invasives are, they're sort of clumped in some ways out there. There's a couple places where they're, I mean, I think people could spread out, but it would depend on how many people we had. So it's not like we want 40 people or even maybe 20 people. We might want like 10 people at the most, or 5 to 10 people. So, and it's a little harder with COVID and younger, really young, like kids. In these particular invasives, this is more, I think, of an adult kind of project, and again with the COVID. So it's just my thoughts in terms of trying to set a workday. I'm happy to help, but I do think we need to be a little careful about how we're going to do it.
What are the plants that are there? Can you remind us of that, Ellen?
Well, there's some clumps of bittersweet.
Okay.
And there is some buckthorn that's a little more scattered in the woods. I think the two primary areas, when you go into the parking lot, there's a really big batch of bittersweet.
Yeah.
And then if you go, if you're driving in, you know how there's a trail that goes off to the left.
Yeah.
And that leads to like a trail juncture. There's a big clump of invasives right there. So if we could tackle those two areas, I think on this particular workday, that'd be great. The rest are kind of scattered in the woods, so it's a little bit more walking around and finding. There's some down by the river, a little more, but.
I think a bit of education about the bittersweet will be helpful, because people see it and they're drawn to it and it's iconic, and they go buy it in plastic at Michael's and make wreaths out of it, and people are going to want to say, well, if I strip the berries, can I just have the vine? And I think that one worries me for the public appeal of the how it resonates as being such an autumn icon. And I can picture people getting it and dragging it. That one's going to take, I think, more training than maybe some of the other ones to disperse of or get rid of.
Especially if it has berries on it, then you have to be pretty careful.
You got to be. But the other thing, I've taken the COVID training she's talking about, and it's done really well. And I was a teeny bit cynical when I first saw it. I thought, oh God, another training and sit in front of a computer and yada yada. It's really done well. It's a video that's maybe, 7-ish minutes, and then there's a quiz afterwards that's 5 questions. And when you do that, then you can hit print and get a copy of a certificate, or you can have somebody hosting it, and your certificate, your proof of having done it and passed it just gets sent off, but gets sent off to somebody overseeing that aspect to make sure that everyone who's participating has done it. So we could do it either way. Say, come, and if you want to participate, even if it's us, come and participate, show that paperwork, or send it to somebody so we would know who had registered and who was coming, and if they were on the list of people who had done that 7 minutes plus the 5 questions. It's thorough, it's not rinky-dink, but it's not difficult. But I would highly recommend, especially in this day and age where contact tracing is getting much more sophisticated, I think, to be able to say, these are the people that were here, and this is the kind of thing that they were aware of. And even with that, we see tonight the mayor of Nashua has tested positive, even though he says he's been a big proponent of all the other safety things in place. So I think we can do all we can, but like as diligent a group and as small of a group as possible. It's not like a garlic pull kind of day where you stuff it in a lawn and leaf bag and you can take it home and get rid of it. This stuff has to really be gotten rid of appropriately.
So what about, would it lend itself at all to doing, would there be any way we could do it sort of virtually? So say, post on social media that we're looking for people to go out on, if they'd like to go to Heron Point and then here are the pictures of the plants that people can pull, and here's how to dispose of them. I mean, we could even maybe go out there and put ribbon on the plants that they could pull. And so it's like not an organized event on a specific date, but more like enough description for people to know what to do so that they could actually go out there on their own and do it if they're so inclined. Or that way we don't have to worry about a large group.
It works better if they've done it once. It's hard to know for sure what to do if you haven't seen it. You know, Mullen was talking about it, once people actually go out and do it versus just listening to someone talk about the plant. It's pretty different experience. I'd be a little worried about the efficacy because it's actually more harmful if people sort of pull it or break it off or, you know, don't fully extract it the way it needs to be extracted. Then you actually just make it grow back stronger. So
Now you rejuvenate it.
yeah, so it's I mean, I think we could plan one and we could say 5 to 10 people or something and say you have to watch this video, and we could have if we did it on Nature Groupie, we could have the link and you have to show the certificate. I mean, I think we can do it. I think we just have to, the audience has to be
Relatively small.
a little bit small, and you know, people could bring a child if they're with their adult, you know, with a parent or with an adult, and they would work with them. That's possible, but I've done these before. I've done a number of these, and invasive plants are hard to do unless it's garlic mustard. They're hard to do with kids.
Right.
Effectively. So it's a matter of what's our goal? Is it to just educate people about invasive plants, or is it, do we really want to accomplish what needs to happen out in Heron Point? Then I think those are two different things.
I'm wondering if it might help to do maybe a first round as a group, like just us, so that then we can break out every other weekend or something like that, and each take responsibility for directing a group of volunteers on a specific weekend. So if, say, we all went out together and during that time learned how to pull, what to pull, and spent our time going through the entire property and tagging everything that needed to be pulled over time, then we could space out and each take a volunteer group over the course of the next month or two and concentrate on a specific area.
I like that idea, that we have a core group that's kind of following the model that we heard a little bit about tonight, was to learn about it, so it's kind of like a train the trainer model. Because I sound like a big ninny about this, but getting rid of it once you've pulled it and gathered it and piled it all up is huge. And to have people go back and think, well, I got this pile, I'll just put it right here and let somebody know that I pulled this pile is even if they leaving it hanging around like that, especially in the case of the bittersweet, can be a bigger problem.
Yeah, I would think we would want someone directing each group of volunteers.
Pull it and surrender it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea, because then we can work on other properties too, and everybody will have to be a trained person that can take out people. I think that's a good model.
Okay, is there a date that people want to work on that, or do you guys want to just send around a proposed date? The thing is, if we're all there, we're technically a quorum, so we then have to post it. That's the only tricky thing with the open meeting law.
Just don't do more than 4. Please.
Yeah, I mean, if we did 3 people at a time, then one person, you know, from one group could tag along to the next group or something and teach.
What do you think, Ellen? It kind of hinges on a lot of your background knowledge and expertise too.
Yeah, we could do. I mean, how many people are interested? I'm willing to help.
I would.
What's
Yeah.
our number of people that are willing? work
Me.
by? It sounds like, was it
Yeah,
Sam?
I think everyone is interested.
Okay.
And I
So-
know Sam is too.
So we could do, so one way to get around that, I guess, no, we're in public, but we could have 3 people meet and do the parking lot, and 3 other people meet in a different area and work in a different area, and I can float between
Yeah.
the 2, so we don't have a quorum in any one spot.
Yeah.
May that work?
Yeah, it could be interesting. In the parking lot, there's cell phone service there for my brand of cell phone at least. So the group in a parking lot can really be going bing, bing, bing and looking and reading and seeing pictures of this plant, whichever one it's going to be we're working on, and really learning a little bit about it and talking about it and getting into the nitty gritty of how careful you have to be with what you're pulling out and what you're leaving behind, not leaving behind. So there's a training piece there. There's a couple of good training ones, certainly about knotweed. I haven't seen a training one about buckthorn. There's a lot about bittersweet. But even talking about those things out in the parking lot would be good, and then just like flip-flop back and forth. Ellen has her track shoes, her track outfit. Ellen's back and forth. It's gonna be great.
It's a small property.
You know it like the back of your hand, so.
Unless it's really good with knotweed.
No, no, we,
Yeah.
The knotweed word.
no.
Drew's a buckthorn master. I can testify.
Oh, good, good, good.
All
Are
right.
you talking about a Saturday? Is that what people are
Yeah,
available?
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Saturday works the best.
26th is the earliest I have.
Yep. Works for me.
Actually, I
Yeah.
could do the 19th or the 26th, actually.
I would go 26.
Yeah, let's go 26th.
And what time of day works, Ellen, or would you like to propose?
Early's good for me. 8:39?
9 works.
9.
9's good.
Okay, 9 a.m.
Tools.
Yeah, bring your own tools and gloves. Can we go back, if we're all set on that, can we go back to the management plan thing for a sec?
Yep. Yep.
So after our last meeting, I offered to go out and, so what I did is I drew up a 1-page scoping document for developing a management plan for Heron Point, as we discussed. And I sent
Right.
that out to a couple of foresters who expressed
Right.
interest, and so I suggested they, provide us with a proposal before next meeting. So hopefully a week
Okay.
we get the proposals from them. So this would be a forest management plan incorporating what Greg talked to us about and any other things. And also actually including the whole trail,
Oh, great.
trail information in there too, because they can do that as part of their management plan. So that way it wraps it all in together, and they'll talk about invasive plants. So we can do these individual, continue with these kinds of invasive projects, but they'll incorporate all of this for long-term thinking as well.
Great.
Oh, and I think I put, if we get the proposal in October, I think have the plan ready by April 1st.
That'd be great.
Sometimes that's not feasible, it goes on for a while, but we can try to have a deadline. But it's not a big property, so it shouldn't be too complicated for them to work on it. So anyway, hopefully by next meeting we'll have something from them.
Thank you. All right. Actually, I think campaign signs is from last time. I don't think I have any update on that other than there hasn't been any other instances of campaign signs on conservation land, so that's good. All right. Now, I did send out to everybody a copy of the municipal code 2-155, which is specifically related to the Wetland Protection Overlay District. I'm hoping everybody got a chance to look at this. The reason this came up is that we had a situation where some property owners along the Piscassic River were having trees removed along their property. Two adjoining lots got together, and the folks worked together with the forester to come in there and remove a bunch of trees on their lots. And there, another person who lived nearby them thought that they had violated this code, 32-155, in terms of removing trees within the buffer zone of 75 feet within a wetland, and that they should have come to the Conservation Commission or something before removing those trees. And the tricky part, so our code enforcement officer in town gets the call on something like this, and he went out there. That's Mike Hoffman. He went out to these properties, and he actually had David Price, who works for Department of Environmental Services, state of New Hampshire, in the Wetlands Bureau, and he came out there and looked, and he said he didn't think that there was any violations of state regulations in the taking of these trees, which left Mike with the municipal code. And the part that becomes difficult is if you read the code and you read down to section C, and it talks about overlay district boundaries, and it says the wetlands protection overlay district shall include all areas of land that meet the criteria of the New Hampshire DES Wetlands Bureau. Rules for determination of wetlands, poorly drained and very poorly drained soils is amended. Prime wetlands is delineated by the Newmarket Conservation Commission and approved in accordance with RSA 482-A:15. And so when you keep reading here, sorry, I'm trying to get to the point where it talks about removing, it talks about there shouldn't be any vegetation removed in this buffer zone. So, number 2, it says, within a prime wetland or within a buffer zone area within 75 feet around the prime wetland, there shouldn't be any construction, filling, dredging, and or removal of vegetation. So that's the real key point in section C, number 2, where it talks about within 75 feet, there shouldn't be any removal of vegetation. So now you drop down to D, general requirements, and under 1, it says agricultural and forestry usage shall be permitted within the wetland overlay district, provided that such uses are carried out in accordance with best management practices.
Patrick,
And so that's where it gets a little bit confusing, I feel like.
so you mentioned that they use a forester. What did they actually do? What?
They removed, I would say, over 10 trees between the two properties. I didn't see the trees beforehand, so I don't know, but I did see that a lot of the pine trees in this particular area are dead. So their concern, some of the concern was they were removing dead trees that they were concerned about falling on their property. And some of the trees that they were removing were strictly for shade that was going to be cast onto their yard. The deal that they had with the forester who removed the trees was, it was basically they weren't charged anything, I think, because of the value of the timber was was given to that person. So they worked out some sort of deal like that. Um, Most of it was done without a lot of disturbance, but there was some parts of the area that to me looked a little disturbed. But that when I say that, I mean it required heavy machinery, and when you get into soils that are wetter, a little heavy machinery leaves a lot of, evidence behind. Um, so so I think that was partially the concern of, and I think it was good that Mike Hoffman brought David Price down so that he could look at it. And again, he felt like they were within their rights to take with up to 25% of these trees that were located in this area. That was exactly what David Price said to Mike. So he didn't see any problem. But again, my concern is, do we need to, should this municipal code be amended to indicate that if someone is going to take, exercise their right to take some timber, that they should submit a management plan to us so that we're aware of it. If this kind of thing comes up again, we've at least been notified and say, yes, a plan was submitted and we approved it. Or do we want to just say, as long as they have a management plan and they're within the buffer zone and they meet all state regulations? I just feel bad that we're putting our own code enforcement in a position where they don't know what to do. So I feel like it needs to be clarified. Either you can take trees in these zones or you can't. But why say taking no vegetation in one area, and in the other section say, but it's okay to remove trees for timber management?
Well, I think part of the intent was you don't want people to create lawn. That was you want to have some limitation on how much vegetation people can take. It just isn't written very clearly. But right now there is no mechanism to know if they're following best management practices or if it's for agriculture or forestry. So that part is a little unclear what the mechanism is for assuring that they're following that. I wouldn't think we'd want a management plan. That seems a little bit. So I assume that they worked with somebody might work with an arborist, or they might work with a logger. It wouldn't be a forester who would typically not do that kind of thing. So it's a logger. So maybe they would have to submit how did Dave Price know that they only took a certain number of trees? Did they just say that they only took 25%? I mean, what's his mechanism to? I mean, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I'm not overly concerned. I think it is not very clear on how you enforce this language.
Yeah, and there, I don't know if Drew, if you recall, do you recall people in the past coming before the Conservation Commission to review these kinds of things?
There he is.
Yeah, I think things like this have come up before. It's tricky, right? There's state regulation. Clearly, if it's in violation of that, there's one set of associated remedies, mitigations. But outside of those, yeah, it's tricky.
I mean, if you have dead trees on your property, you might want to take them down too. So we have to be somewhat realistic about people being able to do certain things. And if it's consistent with DES, how many layers of complicated regulations do we want in terms of being realistically being able to monitor and enforce them? DES has pretty strict wetlands regulations, so it seems to me that that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't want to unnecessarily add a layer on. I just don't. That's why my interest would actually almost be to. I don't know if it would belong in the planning board or the zoning board's court or just to the town planner. Could you review this and maybe make a recommendation about, you know, is there anything that could be changed here to simplify it? There's better guidance maybe, so that if something, I think, you know, to be honest, sometimes these things arise a little bit between people that are living side by side, right? So your definition of removing trees for a legitimate purpose might you know, be different than someone else's. So it's, and that's probably why code enforcement becomes involved, because they're trying to figure out, you know, hey, can this person really take all these trees, or is there some regulation that they should be following? And I guess that's the part that I was looking for a little bit better clarity, because I didn't know, I didn't really know anything other than to say, I would say if DES said it was okay, then I would tend to side with what they were saying. But again, I'm not on the front line sort of having to field the calls. So what do people think about that? Just maybe just making a motion to refer, to ask our town planner to kind of review this to see if it might be helpful for any additional clarity to be written, so that we would have a better idea of what's permissible for people to do, or how they figure out how to proceed.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I had
Sure.
as I read Part D, it specifically talks about forestry uses. And forestry uses within the prime wetlands shall be permitted provided the tree removal complies with a different RSA that I didn't look up, but it's the Comprehensive Shoreland Protection Act. So I think we need to look at RSA 483-V:9VA to.
I think that's what Dave Price though would have been thinking about, is does it meet that, and he said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where the 25% figure, I think, comes in.
5% was up in Part C of 4 of C. It talks about 25% of the area, the minimum lot size, or 25% of any lot density requirement as part of any section of the chapter. And the second thing is this a little more. This section does not cover surface withdrawals.
Well, I think a motion to see if we're with state regulations and clarify what Newmarket's position is on taking out trees within the prime wetland buffers. Because the prime wetland buffers is specific to Newmarket, right? We designate them. So there are two. There's the shoreline protection and DES, and then we have prime wetlands. So we basically have areas that we've delineated, but what can you do inside those, and who's enforcing it? How is it enforced, or what do we want to allow? And yeah, I think clarify.
Okay. So that's the motion. Do I have a second on that motion?
Sure, second. Anybody?
Wait a minute, you can't second your own motion. Chris will second.
Oh, I thought that was the motion I had made. Sorry. But
No, Ellen said clarify.
clarify. Yeah, that was either Ellen can say it and I'll second, or
Okay, Chris seconded, and all in favor.
It was Patrick's motion, I think.
aye.
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 All right, so that's that. Actually, I have two other items. One that I forgot to put on here. We have had some questions about the Lamprey River drawdown, and really, those questions should be referred to Department of Public Works, and they did do a good job of answering those questions for the public. Now, just to give a little background, so they're working on McAllen Dam. They're doing the repairs that were, there was the town hall meeting initiative that passed the voters to repair the dam, and so that's what the project is, and so they had to lower the river in order to do that work on the dam, and there has been some complications with that. So the lever that, or the part of the dam that they open up basically to lower the river levels wasn't working quite the way it should, and so has lowered the river quicker than they anticipated. Issue that was going on, and then the other issue, which is a huge issue, is that we're in an extreme drought, and if you travel to other upstream portions of the Lamprey River, you will see the water level is extremely low throughout the watershed. It's not just the fact that the impoundment's been lowered, it's that there's less water moving through the river. So those two factors are coming together. The town did hold an information meeting back in July about what was going to happen, and I don't believe they had anyone attend. Nobody showed up. So the town has tried to put out information about this project to people and the impacts, and they have worked with New Hampshire Fish and Game in choosing the time period for which they would do the drawdown in. So I know people are, it seems like they're always surprised, even though there was a lot of information public about this, that this would happen, and there was a great concern about the impact that the drawdown has on some of the wildlife, fish, amphibians, shellfish, all of those things that are affected by the drawdown. At this point, I don't know that there's I haven't received a recommendation from Fish and Game as far as a project that someone could do, and I don't know that we have the capacity to take on an additional project for trying to address this issue. I honestly, I don't even know what we would do exactly. But there has been, I know some people in the community are interested in going down there and seeing if they can, I guess move things into the water. But I personally, I'm not sure that I would advise people on that, because I don't have the expertise to tell them move this or don't move that into the water. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts on that or any other information that they want to share about that. I don't know if LRAAC has put out anything. Chris, do you know if there's anything that was put out by Lamprey River Advisory?
They have simply repeated or passed along the same information that came out of Fish and Game and a bulletin about the night in July, way back a year ago, where or last July, where they talked about what the project was going to look like. I think it's just really graphic because nobody really pictured the impact the drought was going to have. So when you say it was going to be this much water was going to be released, it's going to diminish by this much. I think when you see that much, it was lower to begin with because of the drought. So
Right.
I think everybody's actually to be commended for the publicity that was out there, and I would take it as a vote of support. People didn't show up and learn more because there was a lot of information about it, I feel.
Yeah.
Are they
I
going,
mean,
are they going to begin the work sooner now that the water's plummeted? The repair.
I don't know. I'd refer that question to you about when the work commences. My understanding is that as soon as the water's low enough for them to do the work, they'll start. So, and the only thing I would say is if people go down there, which, if they see something like trash or something that they want to pick up, but be careful because the mud is very, very deep. Like, it's surprisingly deep. Like, if you step into the side there, it could easily go up to your waist or something like that.
I was going to mention something about the mud, and interestingly enough, Mike Hoffman is a certified mud rescue expert. And he said every now and then he does get called to go out somewhere in the Great Bay because somebody is in the mud bog. So that's one of his many hats he wears, is he's our local mud rescue expert. And it's really not funny stuff. I mean, it brings that kind of response, but he's got a lot of quick tips about how to angle your foot if you're ever stuck, and how to try and stand on your toes to get the least contact with the mud as possible and whatnot. I wouldn't recommend anybody go in there. After hearing him talk, I wouldn't recommend anybody go in there and try and move a critter that was there. And
Yeah.
it's tricky. It's emotional. I get that. I truly get that. But
Okay. So any other questions on that? Okay. I had one other late breaking request that came in. So, and I did consult Drew on this because it involves the high school cross country team and Newmarket. They are looking for a place to run their meets. And one of the places that they were asking about was Pecasig Loisel conservation land, and I was not very confident that would be a good choice. My primary concern is that most of the trails are really only wide enough for a single person to travel down, and I would worry about a race where people are trying to pass each other, as they inevitably will be in a cross-country race, to run a side-by-side there. It just doesn't feel like it would be very wide there. I have to also look at the deed to see if there's any restrictions on a group using it in that way. I don't know if anyone, Ellen, do you recall in any of your work on that, when you were looking at the trail, if there was any restrictions on a group using Pecasig Loisel?
Well, it was partly water supply protection money, so with checking the drinking water program, it would probably be in the deed, but they tend to prohibit things like commercial activities, commercial recreational activities. This is somewhere in between, I suppose. I guess I'd have to know a little bit more about what the impact is, what the race entails.
Well, so I think what they're looking for is this would be their home field basically. So they would run like 5 or 6 races, and they would have up to 3 teams competing at some of these races because they have more than one team there. So like Newmarket and say Epping and say, I don't know, Pittsfield are all there running a race at the same time. So I don't know if that's 30 runners or, you know, something like that. And yeah, my concerns were, I said I don't think the parking lot accommodates this either. And so even without looking at the deed, I don't feel that it's a great choice. And I did, you know, I know they're looking into possibly the Rockingham Trail, using that. I did tell them that they could check with SELT about using land out at Neal Mill Road, because that at least is there's a lot of that is road width apart, so that might be a better. They also need up to 3 miles of, you know, a 3-mile loop, which I said I don't think that exists at Pecasig Loisel without going on to Audubon's property, and I said I think that would be much more difficult for you to get their permission to use. I just felt like there was a lot of reasons to say no, I'm afraid, but I didn't want to say no without bringing it to everybody to see if there was something I was missing here about.
That was my first question when you brought it up, was, is there really that much distance? Is it that long of a trail to make it worth it for them? But I think that the space, I can imagine it being a little bit more dangerous than Neal Mill, to be honest. And the loop at Neal Mill is 2.6 miles.
Right.
Yeah, I would, if I think back, I would say it's not the intent of the Pecasig Loisel to have that level of impact.
Yeah. I think that's another issue. Yeah, is the impact inevitably would be far greater than what it normally is out there.
We when we looked at that property initially with, if you remember, through with the Loisels, we actually approached them about doing athletic fields there, and they didn't want that level of activity back there. So not that we, you know, I mean, that's another aspect. We're trying to meet the spirit of what the negotiation was, and it was specifically not to have sort of the more active, intensive recreational use there.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Ellen, and I appreciate you guys. That's having that historical perspective on it is helpful, because we don't necessarily have that information always in front of us. Does anyone have any other recommendations on places that they think might be a good place for them to go? I guess the problem is the area that they normally use behind this school. There's some construction going on back there, so it inhibits some way their ability to run back there.
Have they checked with other schools like Portsmouth and, other that are nearby that have cross-country teams, and maybe they can?
Yeah, I think they just want to be able to still host home meets, which is, you know, a huge part of cross country, having your home field advantage.
Now that Halls Mill, that's a nice area. They could sell it on the rail trail and the main road. And
You could actually you can get all the way to the Rockingham Trail there,
yeah.
where they could then run a little bit. All right, well, I think I have enough information to go back and say that it just doesn't look like a good fit at this point to the athletic director, so that he can start looking for other alternatives. I appreciate you guys providing that input. That's, believe it or not, everything on the agenda, unless anyone else has anything else they would like to bring up.
Weren't there some trees or something about
Yeah, something.
Dearborn? Trees on the Dearborn property?
Oh, yeah, okay, so, that's a good point. Emily, I thought Emily was gonna appear tonight, but she didn't appear. Emily Highland, context about removing some trees.
That's fine.
So,
Yeah,
one tree. My biggest concern was that that we contact the state, because they do the easement monitoring there, and they have been very concerned about tree removal over the back there. And so I reached out immediately when I was contacted that Emily wanted to remove a tree. But here's what's happening there. Steve Miller, who worked with the lands division in Fish and Game to do all the easement monitoring, has retired. And this summer they had an intern, a college intern, do all the easement monitoring, like in one summer that Steve would have done over the entire year. So that, I don't know that they both Emily and I made calls to that division with Fish and Game to try and get someone from there to weigh in on it, because I just want to make sure, because again, my feeling is, after what's happened there in the past with some easement violations, the last thing I want is another easement violation out there. And I would feel much more comfortable if they would say, yes, we agree that this tree is something that is okay to remove. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, but that was my initial thought.
This tree marked with a blue band, is it
Yes.
right on the edge?
It appears to be, and again, those were the trees that we've had. Those are the kinds of issues we've had in the past, with trees being removed right along the boundary line.
What's this one's leaning on her house, or leaning toward her house, or what's the?
Yeah, she feels it's, and the picture she supplied, it does look legitimately close to her property, her house. But I just didn't feel.
She would pay to take it down? Or she would
What's
take it
that?
down? She would take it
Yes.
down, pay to take it down?
Yeah, she wants to have it removed.
Seems like the easement bound, the property boundaries are very close. The house is very close to the boundary. Is that right?
It does, and I don't. So there are that's issues, because the driveway was very unclear about exactly where the boundary was, and so when the driveway was paved, it actually went over. So that tells you how close the property boundary and her place is, that that kind of stuff has happened there. So again, that's why I would prefer for the state to weigh in, because
I agree with you, Patrick. I think we need the state to weigh in.
okay. All right, then Emily also knows that, and she was fine with that, the property owner, and so that's where that one lays. We've both reached out to the state to ask them, and she knows she's not going to take it down until she hears from us and the state that it's okay. So I guess I'll have an update when I hear something.
She's willing to pay for the removal?
I think she wants to remove it, yeah. And she knows that she would pay for that, yeah. She's not asking for anyone else to pay for it. Okay, anything else that anyone has? Okay, well, look forward to seeing people on the 26th.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll do it.
Second.
All in
And
favor?
thank you.
All right, thank you. Have
Yeah.
a good night.
Nice to see everyone.
Bye.